All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for episode 2 of the Coast to Coast Fantasy Football Show. As always, I'm Cody, joined here by Devin, Conan, and producer Aaron. How we doing, guys?
Doing real good. Beautiful day. Happy to be here. Um, just all that free time, but no free time at all. Just doing fantasy. What about you, Conan?
Uh, can't complain. Just had my longest surviving league draft this past weekend. Big troop down to Delaware, but we made it back only one blown tire. So, pretty successful weekend, and just waiting on the season. Honestly, that's the biggest thing. I'm sure everyone
Almost
else
here, baby.
is.
Almost here. I'm tired
One
of the
blown
season
tire
not
on a
being
road
here.
trip. Not bad at all. All right, but before we get too deep, we did want to take a moment and extend some well wishes to the new Washington football team head coach. Mr. Ron Rivera was recently diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma. He is going to be going through treatment during preseason and into the beginning of the regular season. They've estimated around 10 weeks or so for that treatment. The team's already come out and appointed Jack Del Rio as the interim head coach, obviously with his head coaching experience in Jacksonville and previously Oakland. And if there's going to be any meetings, any sort of practices that Rivera is going to be missing, he's going to step in to hopefully keep that as a seamless transition. But end of the day, just well wishes to Rivera, the whole team, and the whole family. Hope it's a quick recovery.
Yeah, shout out to Big Ron pulling for you. A lot of good energy, sending that your way. My pops actually has the same thing. So he's dealing with his thyroid. Turns out he had the same exact carcinoma as him. So high success rate of bouncing back off it. It happened to him. They both were fully healthy. They both were living life, doing well, and it just kind of happened out of nowhere. So best cure for it, just steady diet, stay active, and keep that mind clear, and be happy. Everyone's going through something right now, and just gotta stay happy, stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And just from the football side of things, really what Rivera is doing in that system is trying to instill a culture change. The actual offense and defense through Scott Turner and Jack Del Rio, they're going to be doing a lot more of the minutia. So he's still going to be able to have the influence that the team is hoping that he is, even if he has to step back for a day or two. All right. Now, there's a little bit of old news that we didn't have a chance to talk on our last episode, and just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to at least get everyone's thoughts on here. But TJ Hawkinson, not 100%. That ankle is still giving him some issues. So for anybody not remembering, the ankle was injured on Thanksgiving of last year, and he was going into the season #1 tight end drafted in that 2018 class. Any thoughts about what this is going to do for his projection for the year?
So, it definitely isn't a good sign that he's coming out, and he's had a good amount of time since obviously his injury, and he's still like, I know I'm not the best I can be. And it's troubling because the team needs him basically to come back and be a beast if he is a beast. And it'll be interesting to see how he starts the year if they have him on a snap count, limit his usage a little bit just to really, really ease him in and not risk any more injury and try to keep him healthy. But we'll see what happens. What do you think, Dev?
Yeah, I'm not into Mr. Bojankles, Always seems like he's injured. He's on a team of misfit toys playing for the Lions. I try to look back, and I'm trying to think to myself, who's been a tight end for the Detroit Lions that I've been excited about? I can only think of Pettigrew. And then I'm like, well, what were his stats? He was actually the second leading Lions tight end in receptions career ever. And he wasn't even that big of an impact player. So it's hard for me to hop on board. They got Marvin Jones. They got Kenny G. He's smooth. They got Danny D, Danny Amendola. He's going to do his thing in the slot. Patricia was his coach over New England. It just doesn't seem like a recipe really set up. A really nice rookie, Swift coming in, carry on Leg Brace Johnson doing his thing. We'll see what's going on, but I'm not really big on TJ Hawkinson, even though he's an Iowa State Hawkeye, and they got some pretty cool fans over there.
Yeah, and honestly, with how the tight end market is looking right now, it's one more red flag. There's enough guys out there who are in the same boat of being these late round dart throws that I just don't know if it's really worth it to invest in somebody with that many question marks. All right. Now, the best quote of the week always is Mr. Bruce Arians. I love being a Tampa Bay fan. It's nice to have a coach who just says what's on his mind. But recently he was asked about Mr. Keyshawn Vaughn, and not the best quote. So direct from the horse's mouth, he said, maybe as a kick returner in regards to Vaughn producing for week one. Said, we've got some guys that are capable kick returners. You know, Antoine Winfield was a heck of a punt returner in college, so he'll get a look. Punt returner is the much more important position because they aren't going to kick those out of bounds. So in the same quote, bodies his running back by saying that his best case for week one is going to be a kick returner, and then bodies him again by saying that he's probably not even going to be punt returning or not even kick returning. It's just, I don't know, guys. What's the thought here? What's the thought on Tampa Bay's backfield and Keyshawn Vaughn?
It's not big on it, man. I mean, you're looking at the GOAT, Tom. What's he going to want to do? He's going to want to throw it. Who's he want to throw it to? Mike Evans, who's going God mode in practice. You got Gronk Daddy. And let's not forget about, your boy in the slot. And then if you have to go on the ground, all coach is talking about is Rojo. Until today, he's talking about them fumbles, putting it on the ground. But then they brought in LaShawn McCoy. And let's not forget about Brait. It's like weapons galore. They got a full arsenal over there. I think a rookie is the last one on the docket to get any kind of love, especially with Arians being that coach over there, loving them vets.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty skeptical he was going to have any sort of serious role coming into week one, especially with everything going on this summer being pretty much the worst time to try to crack a lineup as a rookie. And I mean, they signed LaShawn McCoy mid-season. They didn't have to go out and do that. So I've been pretty out on Keyshawn Vaughn from the beginning, just in terms of this year. But obviously, could be a nice dynasty pickup for down the road.
Yep. And one thing, just because it's been this false narrative has been thrown around a lot with Vaughn recently, he's not a great pass blocker. If you go back and you take a look at his tape in college, take a look at what people were saying before he got drafted, pass blocking was honestly one of the worst graded skills that he had. So he's not the best runner. He's not the best pass catcher, and he's not the best pass blocker. So he's going to be good depth. He's young. He has a chance to grow into it, but I wouldn't expect much this year. And the last
Can't block for Brady. If you can't block for Brady, I mean, he ain't going to be back there. That's just the honest truth.
Yeah, look at the comments Brady made last year about N'Keal Harry. He wasn't ready, pulled him off the field. When he was forced on the field, he didn't throw to him. Brady's not going to use guys unless he feels comfortable with them. It's how he operates, and it's what he's earned after all these years.
Yeah.
All right, moving into the last bit of old news that we have. We never got a chance to talk about Mr. Will Fuller. 172 pounds going into last year. Is currently at 190. That COVID weight is hitting him good. For anybody not remembering, the past 3 years, Will Fuller has missed 20 games. Combination of a bunch of soft tissue injuries, a lot of lower body injuries, but we're moving into 167 vacated targets with Mr. DeAndre Hopkins out of town. Guys, is this what finally keeps him on the field?
I mean, I think there's both arguments to be made. You know, sometimes you add a little weight, you're trying to be bulking up for the big hits and not get injured, but you don't know how to play now that you're 20 pounds heavier, not play as efficiently and effectively, and that puts yourself in a little more risk. I find myself wanting to believe that this can only help him if he can maintain that speed. He has the connection with Deshaun as opposed to Randall Cobb or Brandon Cooks, who's coming in to a new system. And you heard it straight from Deshaun. He said of Will Fuller, he's going to ball out this year. You know, that's not like, yeah, no, I think Will's my top target. Like, no, like he's going to ball out. Like I want to believe it. And I think I partially do. I think he's the wide receiver I want in that offense over Cooks. If that's basically the same price, he's a little cheaper, honestly, I believe, according to ADP. But what do you think about that, Dev?
So hot and cold. I really want to love him. You know what I mean? Especially with D-Hop leaving.
Yep.
But I really think why he was so good is because D-Hop drew 2, drew 3, and then he was able to go over the top and just catch that long ball for the TD, right? I think with kind of more of a spread out offense, they're going to key on him a lot more, especially knowing that he's his rookie receiver or a vet receiver now in that offense. So it's hard for me to like him with Cooks and Cobb coming in. But Deshaun's a baller and he loves that deep ball. So throughout the injuries, if I can get him late, if I can get Fuller in like a 10th round range, 9th, 10th round range, something like that, and I need that upside guy. And I have like a lot of floor guys that are a lot of like solid, PPR guys. And I need that explosion. Well, yeah, I'll take him. But if I need someone solid and someone I could depend on, I just can't trust him. I'd rather go with the Cooks in that offense with his concussion because at least he would come back. Or even a Randall Cobb who's just turned 30 this year. A lot of people think he's a lot older than he is, but he's done an amazing job. Did really solid on the Cowboys last season. Always did a good job with the Green Bay Packers, and he's gonna have a lot of value too. So it's hard for me to just put it all in Fuller's hands.
Very fair points. One thing that I wanted to do, we talked about this a little bit before we got on air, but we've never actually seen a 16-game season with Will Fuller. We've definitely not seen that with Deshaun Watson. So I just want to take a look back. Over the past 2 years, there's been 15 games where Watson's played and Fuller's been able to get at least 70% of the snap targets. We pulled out some of the other ones just because of injury and wanted to give him a full game. But that goes to a 16-game pace of 79 receptions, 1,181 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That would have put him last year at wide receiver 14, directly between Tyler Lockett and Robert Woods. And current ADP has him at wide receiver 34, Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 36. So just keep an eye on this wide receiver core. Could be a lot of great value with some of the uncertainty that's popping up there.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Mr. Dalvin Cook and the Minnesota Vikings have put a halt to their contract negotiations for the season. He's going to be playing out the final year of his rookie contract at, unfortunately, $2 million before going into 2021. I mean, I know you guys have seen that 2021 market, but what are your thoughts about Dalvin Cook?
Listen, if he's playing and he's not injured and there's no contract dispute, he's not holding out, whatever, he's a top 5 running back in the league. It's the opportunity he gets on that offense, and it's just his talent. When you saw him ball out last year, he was the running back 2 through 15 weeks, I believe, and it's a shame that this is happening because I guess it's not a shame because it's kind of driving down his ADP, which is nice for some people that really want to take that shot. If he slides down to 7 or 8 in a draft, that's tremendous value when he was basically thought of as the number 5 running back, or 4 even in some people's eyes. And I don't blame him. He's getting $2 million, and who knows what he's going to get next year with all those other faces. So it's a tough storyline going on, but I think he's still gonna be in there, and he's still gonna be a top 5 guy probably in running backs.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. You can't hold out anymore. 40K a day. NFLPA did that this year. He was on pace to be RB2 last year as far as points wise. And all they do is run the ball in Minnesota. So if you do want to invest on him, wouldn't be a bad call.
Real quick, some rapid fire. Not where you take them at their ADP, but actual end of the year finishes. Dalvin Cook or CEH, Conan?
Wait, you said
so Dalvin or CEH, regardless of ADP or anything else, who do you think ends the year better?
I think I'd probably go CEH. It's a little more risky, but the upside I think is higher. We've seen Dalvin do it, but we've also seen Dalvin get hurt, and now we're seeing him hold out. So it's hard for me to say that CEH in my eyes is like a little safer of a pick, but that's a tough one because there's certainly some question marks surrounding both of those guys. But CEH, he's on an elite offense, and the Kansas City running backs have always just produced massively.
Dev?
CH all day.
All right, I'm going to be the weird one here saying Dalvin, but this is a good reason. If you believe in one guy over the other, ADPs are changing. So moving over to Chris Herndon next. Recently got some praise from Coach Adam Gase with some big plays going on in practice. Missed most of last year with an injury, but we're now seeing that the tables are kind of turning. He's the healthy guy coming in. Denzel Mims is a little bit banged up, missing a couple practices. And with really only 2 veterans, Jamison Crowder and Brashard Perriman, Do you think that Herndon could be a sneaky late round upside tight end?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Mims is already injured. You got Griffin coming back off injury. He was the tight end they had last year. And you got a top 12 projection, 2018. So if you want to think about what they're going to be doing this year, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. And who they're going to be throwing it to. I just see him kind of being that late round undrafted guy that you could really get value for. And I think there's so many tight ends this year. I wouldn't put him as a tight end one, but I definitely think he has, potential. So keep him on your radar, see how he looks in training camp, keep an open mind. And if you do find yourself at the end of the draft out of tight end, don't panic. He'll be there.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add, they just figured to not be a great team in general. So if they're going to be behind, they got to throw it. And as we talked about, there's not too many options that are ahead of them. So
yeah, suddenly losing Jamal Adams will do that to you. All right, moving on. All right, up in Buffalo, Mr. Zach Moss has apparently got some pass catching chops. So coaches come out and they're getting him more and more involved with Devin Singletary up there and TJ Yeldon also in the backfield. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that Moss could break through, and just where do you see this backfield breaking down?
Yeah, I mean, they drafted him to rush touchdowns within the five. That's a Frank Gore role they had last year. They want him to be doing that. Devin Singletary is going to take majority of that midfield work. He's going to be catching some balls. And if they need someone else to catch some balls, it's going to be TJ Yeldon. He did it over 2 or 3 times in Jacksonville. He's known for it. I think he has something like 8 yards per catch. He's pretty decent, and he's been there for a couple years now. So I'm not buying into it. I'm seeing his coach speak, but it's good to hear that they're confident in him, but that just murkies up the backfield even more. I wouldn't really draft him unless you're kind of like in a dynasty format and you're looking for some long-term potential. But other than that, in a redraft, you might want to take him kind of later on, 12th round, something like that. Handcuff situation, or in a standard league, you might want him.
Yeah, I mean, I was totally under the impression that he was just a goal line back as well. But this, honestly, instead of really putting Moss up in my rankings, it's more so lowering Devin Singletary for me. I'm more so just staying away from that entire backfield completely.
Okay, wow. It was one of the more active backfields in the league last year, and just kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit, Frank Gore with 166 carries, the ghost of Frank Gore. So if Moss can be a little bit more efficient with those touches, can actually pound a couple things in from the end zone. I know that Josh Allen had 4 of his touchdowns only come after Frank Gore was stuffed. So it's an interesting backfield. I am actually, we were just talking about this, statting him out first thing tomorrow morning. But there could be some good value there.
Yeah, just to kind of just add on something real quick. He is infinite. He is immortal. He is Frank Gore. But, I know he had 156, but I think that Josh Allen loves to run that ball into that end zone. And he had 9 rushing touchdowns last year. So that even feeds into or breaks into Zach Moss. So I'm staying away from him altogether.
Hey, I'll happily be the high guy on him right now. So, all right, guys, and just a couple of quick hits. A little bit of murky information coming out about some injuries, but it looks like Debo might actually play week 1, and ironically, Ayuk might be sitting out for the first handful of weeks. So, are you guys backing on Debo?
No, I'm out. I'm out still. If they rush him back, he's gonna get hurt again. Long list of injuries, college, and he already has one. Coming into this year, he had one last year. So I'm looking at, if you're looking for an identity on that team, look no further. The Bourne identity. That's who you want. You want Kendrick Bourne. The man caught so many touchdowns last year and looked good doing it. Everyone's injured, so he's gonna get a good look, and they just signed him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to offer.
How proud of you? How proud of yourself were you when you thought about that Bourne identity? Just imagine you at home.
I got the abacus side. I'm doing the math equation on the bad joke. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more on Ayuk, more in. They just came out and said that he's been as good as advertised through the first 8 practices. I know he got a little hurt, but that's just something you like to hear. And even if he's not ready and Debo's not ready, it might be the Bourne show, but it'll be Kittle first, Kittle second, Kittle third, and then someone else. So in the
Probably
passing
Kittle
offense.
fourth.
Yeah, could be.
All right. Hey, Mr. Hot Take over here. Darrell Henderson hurt his hamstring day to day. Dev, what do you think about the Los Angeles backfield?
Yeah, not a big fan of it. Go Hawks. But aside from that, this guy can't stay healthy. Like, injured last year, already injured this year. And there's, they're not easy injuries to come back from. They're going to be nagging. So when I'm looking at that rookie they drafted, he's already losing the rock and can't. Like, this just goes to show the inexperience there. Then you look at who else do they have in their backfield? I don't know, Malcolm Brown, a guy who put up 5 touchdowns last year, a guy that looks good on tape when he's given the opportunity, produces and comes through, a vet. One of my sleepers this year, Malcolm Brown. Keep a lookout for him. He's gonna turn into a big boy.
All right. So Damian Harris, one of the 37 running backs up in New England, is apparently standing out. But with Sony on the pup, with Lamar on the pup, is this kind of a only guy left rising to the top, or do you think that Damian Harris might actually make some noise and start to supplant some of these guys who maybe haven't lived up to some of that potential?
I think he's doing his best to really get a role in the offense right now. But as you said, Sony's hurt, Lamar's hurt. When those guys come back, I just don't see Damian Harris sustaining any type of carries that he gets in the early season if those guys are still banged up. And we'll get to who the main man in the backfield you want in New England is a little later on. But I think there is still some value back there, but it's just not Damian Harris in my eyes.
All right. Nick Chubb back at practice. We talked in the last episode that he was held out with some hamstring issues. Looks like everything is good to go, and Cleveland's back up to full strength.
Yeah, I'm glad the Chubb's at full strength. Everyone's talking like, they already had to zip him up, put him in a bag. But he's already back at practice. Things are good. Still want to draft him. It's going to be a great offense for him, but still be cautious of Kareem Hunt.
Yep. Just so that way everybody's in the know, because I haven't seen this being reported all that much, but Lamar Jackson has missed the past 2 practices with a soft tissue issue. They haven't really gone into any details. Harbaugh basically laughed off the reporter and said, we don't talk about injuries. So I don't know if there's much to discuss right now, but obviously this would be a huge blow to Baltimore if anything actually happened to Lamar. Just keep your eyes out for him. See if any of the beat reporters are giving any new information over the next couple of days. Rolling on over to Las Vegas. We've been seeing a lot of conversations about Bryan Edwards breaking out, about Henry Ruggs breaking out, if Waller's going to be able to keep up from last year. And this might help make that picture a little bit easier. Tyrell Williams has a torn labrum in his shoulder and will attempt to play through it. Guys, just thoughts, wide receiver playing through shoulder injuries, especially torn labrums this early. Do you think, how's this going to shake up that wide receiver core?
I think I had him starting on the outside, and now I like the hype around Bryan Edwards. Ruggs is going to start in the slot, but I think it's going to go back to more Walrus, and they're really going to try to use Ruggs. I saw there was a report that said they really want to use Ruggs as a centerpiece, almost like they had plans for AB, which is, you don't just say that about, any receiver in an offense. That's saying you're going to feed him a lot of targets. And the fact that they already were like, all right, he beat out Renfro and he's going to start in the slot for us. He's going to get those targets. So he's my guy out of that wide receiver core, but be on the lookout for Bryan Edwards for sure, I believe.
Deb, you more team Edwards, team Ruggs, or team Waller?
So many mixed signals. At this point, I think AB's coming back. I don't know what's going on over there. It's a tough one for me. If I had to pick a target in that offense, the Walrus, man. Darren Waller. They leaned heavily on him when they had nobody. Guess what? They have nobody coming into the season. At least people that they can, depend on knowingly. So, the Walrus, maybe Henry Ruggs. I don't know. It's a tough one for me. I don't know.
Okay. I will be the contrarian, I guess. To me, Brian Edwards is the guy to own here. He's going to be the cheapest one for your cost, and just with how the offense is going to revolve around the X receiver and how Gruden's offense has always revolved around the X, he to me seems like the most value. Ruggs will be the better football player on the field and would probably help them win more games, but for fantasy, to me, Edwards just seems like a screaming deal. All right, our last bit of news looks to be like that running back 2 position on the Los Angeles Chargers is going to be a little bit more of a competition than we might have expected. Justin Jackson was the starter, or was the number 2 moving into the season, and Joshua Kelly, the rookie, is looking to move in recently when it comes to practices. Guys, any thoughts? Any outlooks for that backfield?
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jackson, 7th round pick. Kelly, 4th round pick. Eckler's the main man over there. He might go up to 200 touches, kind of fill in some of that volume that was left behind by Melvin Gordon. And then as far as the rest of the work, they're probably just going hot hand. Whoever's flashing that particular day, they're going to roll with them. I just don't see them on the field that much. Or if they're on the field, they're not going to be getting the ball that much. So, we'll see. With them being down, I don't see them having that kind of game script majority of the time where they're on the ground running it. Because they're not really breaking away for large runs, not from what I've seen last year with Justin Jackson. What do you think, Conan?
Yeah, I mean, I was under the assumption that Justin Jackson had that number 2 role pretty locked up, honestly, with the rookies having a much harder time making it into lineups, onto rosters. But apparently Josh Kelly now has the edge, and I do think the RB2 there has some value because Eckler is never going to get the 200 plus carries. He'll reach the touches, but not the carries, and they're going to have someone there that are going to be taking the, between the tackles carries. So we'll see. But I agree with you. Eckler is the main man back there, and he's going to be a great top 10 running back.
Yeah, no issues on this side. I agree. Eckler's going to be the guy in that backfield. But I think that if Kelly is able to vulture that goal line work, especially in best ball formats, he might be a screaming value. Got another 25 pounds on top of Justin Jackson. So hopefully if they do need someone to be able to pound that rock in, he'll be the guy getting the first cracks. All right, boys.
He was 4.8 a carry. Solid 200-pound back. He can handle 200 carries.
Damn right. All right, guys, that's all of our news for right now. So we're going to continue from the last episode and continue to go by round breakdowns from rounds 7 through rounds 12. Basically just finding the one guy in each round who we think doesn't belong, who's going to be your best value, and who should be that target going in. Devin, you want to start us off with round 7?
Yeah, I'm going to go to your neck of the woods, Conan. Joel Santana, Mr. Edelman. He just gets slept on. He's over 30. He's in the slot. He's not a sexy pick. He's old, but he puts out every single year. He's had only one season in the last 6 without a top 3 or better wide receiver 3 performance. It's just there's no one else there, and their defense has gotten a lot worse. They've lost multiple key players. So I just see them using the pass game a little bit more this year, especially without Tom. They're not going to be ahead in games. They're not going to feel as confident. So they're going to lean on the vet, especially with camp. I'm watching all their training camp right now, and it seems like they're really getting that chemistry down. They're putting a lot of work in, and I'm hearing amazing things out of Cam too. First one in, last one out. Work ethic off the charts. So I'm loving everything. I hate to be saying this, but I'm loving everything right now about the direction the New England Patriots are going. I hate to even say that, but he's in the 7th round. He's a true PPR beast. He was wide receiver 7 last year, and no one wants to touch him. So if you go RB heavy, I think it'd be a really solid pick, to be completely honest with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that pick whatsoever. I will say, though, I guess Cam Newton did finally start connecting and had some touchdown passes to N'Keal Harry. I've been mostly out on Harry, but if they develop some sort of connection, he will need someone to throw the ball to deeper down the field. But I think Edelman is a lock to outperform his ADP. It's kind of crazy how far he is being drafted at his position.
Yeah, I'm also all in Edelman right now. It's one of those things. We're going to talk about these, especially with the next couple of picks coming up. But there's a handful of teams that you can pick up their number one receiver this late, and Edelman is honestly one of probably four. I'm looking at the Houston wide receivers. New York Jets and New York Giants are the only teams who don't have a wide receiver one already drafted by the time he comes off the board. So you just can't buy that sort of volume in round 7. He's one of the few guys who really can. So moving over to me in the 8th round, I'm actually going to touch base on the other wide receiver over in Houston. I know we were talking about Will Fuller earlier, but Mr. Brandon Cooks at wide receiver 36. This team to me there's so much ambiguity. There's so much uncertainty, and Bill O'Brien is such a unique figure in how he runs his team that we really could be completely wrong on every person in that wide receiver core, and they can all still improve on where they are. Brandon Cooks has never been a wide receiver 36. He's played 4 16-game seasons. His absolute worst finish has been top 15. So you already have that baked into it. DeAndre Hopkins gave up 150 targets, and the whole team as a whole was 167 targets being vacated. So he's going to have an opportunity to be able to move in seamlessly and be able to pick up well over 120 targets from day one. Cooks' highest target count his entire career has only been 125. So you can see that if he even hits 80% of where he was, he's still going to have an opportunity to come back as a wide receiver 2 or better. Watson was basically the first, and over 60% of his completions down the field ended up being right on target. The only 2 people who were higher than that were Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, and by less than 1% on each. So, I mean, this is a top-tier quality targets to be able to work off of with a top-tier quality wide receiver. Everyone's talked about it over the past, but 4 of the past 5 seasons have been 1,000 yards. Only one that hasn't was because of injuries, and each one of those well over 13.5 yards per catch consistently. This is one of those guys where if he hits and if he plays through, we're not talking top 30. We're not talking top 24. The conversation is if he's able to break into a wide receiver 1 season. Even looking back, his numbers are somewhat deflated because if you look at that season I mentioned back in 2015 with 125 targets, he was wide receiver 15. If you were to put those same numbers into last year, he'd be wide receiver 7. So as you take a look at what he's doing in context of the receivers around him, he continuously overperforms based on what his draft cost is. And at the back of the 8th round, I'm all in here.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of ways to look at it. You could have him go for $1,000 again. He's always done it. Last year, I think we all agreed the Rams were just trash. They went to the Super Bowl, lost, Super Bowl hangover. Brandon Cooks shitty year, he gets traded out. It all makes sense. Fresh new start. They got some salary cap. He got a new team, and he got a great quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Loves to throw that rock, especially with the receiver that averages around 15 yards a catch. Like, that's what they wanted. That deep threat on the other side of Fuller, just kind of open it up. Also, a guy's been in a lot of systems with a lot of amazing quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and he knows a lot of things that, a lot of unique stuff you can do with him. Very intelligent guy, nothing but praise everywhere he's been, although he has gone around. So he does have concussion history, which you kind of got to look out for. But when asked about it to him, he does not care at all. Shrugged it off, blew the question off. So he's going all in, obviously head first. I'm just wishing the guy luck. Hope he can stay healthy and put up a lot of points over in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I like Brandon Cooks this year. I like the situation, the opportunity he's getting. But we talked about him earlier. I like Will Fuller. I don't think I could pick between the two at their price. They're basically within 3-4 wide receiver slots ADP wise of each other. And there's not much to dislike about the guy. He's had some injury troubles, but he continues to produce under different quarterbacks, different teams every year, and he's just a consistent 1,000-yard receiver.
Yep. Now, one thing I do want to make a mention is that round 8 is usually where Marvin Jones is going, and I know that every fantasy analyst under the sun has been talking about him, and we see it every year. Somebody gets talked up, they get hyped up, he goes from, I know earlier in the season, MJJ was round 9. already around 8, and I'm assuming probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks he's going to be jumping up to around 7. So do want to shout him out. I know that he is kind of the industry darling at the moment about what he can come back on, but he's going to be jumping up here relatively soon. So just keep an eye. Cooks is probably not going to get any additional love until actual games start happening, especially with no preseason.
Yeah, so now I wanted to get into the round 9 guy, and that is another Patriot, surprise, surprise. James White is currently going RB 37, so not even an RB3, and he's going around pick 100. And so overall, we talked about it with Julian Edelman, but they don't have a great receiving core. It's Edelman, and then you got N'Keal Harry, and apparently now Gunnar Olszewski is the most exciting guy in training camp. So we might have to give him some looks. But, we still have Jacoby Myers, who made the team last year, and there was, some connection with Tom. He earned Tom's trust by the end of the year a little bit, and that's pretty hard to do as an undrafted guy coming into the Patriots. So, but basically no real targets that are going to be commanding those looks like Edelman in that offense. And it's just James White basically in that backfield that's going to catch the ball. And Damian Harris, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He has that upside. He hasn't really been used much, but if Sony and Lamar are healthy, I think they're going to be handling most of that rushing workload, and White will have all of that pass catching work as he does every year. He's caught 50 balls at least for 4 straight years. And even though he's a top 20 guy, basically past 3-4 years, and he was even a top 10 guy 2 years ago, he's never cracked 500 yards rushing. And that just shows how consistent and excellent he is, just catching balls out of that backfield and just being just something that the QB can go to real quick in trouble. And he's basically a 80% catch guy, and there's not a lot to dislike about him with that price, I believe.
Yeah, it's just like that person no one wants to go in on. So many ways you can use James White. If you're going 0 RB and he's your first RB off the board, well, you got a guy who's been a RB1, RB2 for the last 3 years or 4 years, like you were saying, Conan. And it's just hard to beat that value. Over 100 targets, he's catching all the balls in the entire world. And we explained how they have no one to throw to besides Jewels. And then when you look a little deeper, you go in the RB room, Lamar Miller, got him, already on the pup. Sony Michel, who knows going on with that situation. Went on the pup, might be coming off it. I don't know. All this Harris hype. Who knows, man? Rex Burkhead's still there doing a thing on special teams. They love him. They use him. But James White, the white unicorn, he is someone you can count on in this offense. And I just love him, especially at his ADP. You get him this late, and you can get a top 1, top 2 RB performance. It's just you just can't pass up on that value with someone who's such a leader on that offense.
Yeah, and going along with what you said, I think with Cam Newton coming into town, we don't talk enough about what a mobile quarterback does to the pass-catching running back. You have to figure out who you're going to cover. You have to figure out what the defense is going to be able to do, and that just leaves White open as an option more often than you'd expect. So definitely, since we play in full PPR, he is a lovely target in the back of the ninth.
Definitely. So kind of just jumping in right into my man's James Hurst. So here we go, jumping in. My main man, round 10, Hayden Hurst. Currently, they got him at 113 ADP and the 13th tight end off the board as far as fantasy pros go. And I just don't see why. So many reasons you're going to want this guy this year. Let's say you're in a league, and let's say you're drafting. Well, most people go RB first, and most people go RB for the first 3 picks. And then you start getting to pick 4, 5, 6. Well, you're probably going to go wide receiver, kind of get your value there. You started getting to the late rounds. Yeah, you'll probably start getting some depth, RB, get another wide receiver. Then you're like, okay, I need a quarterback. Around the 9th round, you're going to get a quarterback. Then you're in the 10th round. All of a sudden, all these options open up to you. Where do I go from here? I have my running backs. I have my wide receivers. I need a tight end. Who's there? Bingo. Round 10, Hayden Hurst. Atlanta Falcons. Now, this is a first-round draft pick. The Ravens love this guy. They just couldn't afford to keep him. They had too many tight ends over there, and especially with the emergence of Andrews, you just couldn't justify it, especially with the price that they are going to have to pay him most likely and the price they got for him. Austin Hooper was a great tight end for the Falcons last year before he got hurt. 13 games, and if he was on pace for actually tight end 2 numbers, he would have been the second tight end last year. Third tight end last year, right behind Kelsey and Kittle. And it's really hard to beat that production when you're looking at an offense like the Atlanta Falcons that currently ranked 2 and 3 as far as divisional points were concerned. High-powered offense in a high-powered division is going to be throwing it nonstop, and it's a top 5 offense in total yards, top 3 in passing yards, and top 13 in points. I definitely see Hayden Hurst getting a lot of love this year, getting a lot of targets. And when you talk about red zone work, 15 targets went to the tight end position. Only one other player, Julio Jones, had 16. That was above that. So all in all, if you're looking for a tight end premium, tight end 1, potentially breaking into the tight end 3 performance, I mean, Hayden Hurst has everything going for him.
I definitely like the situation he landed in, that passing offense. You know, you got Matty Ice, and they like to throw the ball a lot. But I just don't find myself as high maybe as you are. I just think they're going to use Calvin Ridley a little, like just way more than they have, and really incorporate him as like another centerpiece alongside Julio. And then they signed your boy, the man, the myth, the legend, Todd Gurley. But
Love Todd,
yeah,
man.
so you know, like I just think if Gurley's going to have a big year, and Julio's going to have a big year, and Calvin's also going to have a big year, I just don't think there's room for a tight end 1 also to have that big of a year. And that's just where I find myself. It's kind of like the same argument in LA, where I'm not as high on Higbee, just because everyone's expecting Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods to basically be top 15 options, top 20 options. And I just think it's Jared Goff back there. If they're gonna, there's just not enough yards and touchdowns and points to just go around to service 4 just upper echelon like tier 1 guys, in my opinion. But I could be totally wrong, and I would be hurting then.
Yeah, just to kind of feed into what you said. Maybe an offense that wasn't a top 5 offense in a division that wasn't a top 3 division in points, I could see that. But I definitely think there's room for 4 fantasy producers in that offense, just because of how many points he's proven to score, how many points they scored last year, can only go up. They were 13th ranked when they were 3rd in total passing yards. So I think a lot of positive progression or regression or whatever you want to call it is going to occur. And I think they can hold 4 targets on that offense.
Yeah, I love Kittle. I love Kelsey. But if I could get Hayden Hurst every time in round 10 without somebody sniping him before me, I think I might go late tight end just in every one of my drafts. Less so about the actual player itself, because I do think he is a talented player, but the situation is what really makes him impressive to me. Cutter's been top 8 in passing offense every single year he's been an offensive coordinator. That comes in targets and in yardage. If you take a look at who the top tight ends are, look at Kittle, top offense. He already has the targets built into it. Kelsey, top offense, targets are built into it. Ertz, top offense, targets are built into it. You move over to Atlanta, just like Devin said, I mean, we've got one of the best offenses in the league with a relatively bad defense in one of the best divisions. That team has to throw, and the great part about Cutter, for better or worse, is that you know he is going to actively game script targets into his tight end position. So we saw that with Austin Hooper before he got injured. He was the tight end 1 last year. So even if there is significant regression from Hooper to Hurst, there's still value for him to be able to come back as, in my opinion, in that kind of tight end 6, tight end 7 range. And good point, Devin, that Hooper did actually vacate 120 targets on top of the fact that Russell Gage got, I want to say 92 targets last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just there, that's 200 targets that you could pull from a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and then a tight end that's not there anymore. So this whole offense is going to have a lot of transition, a lot of opportunities. And don't forget, Julio can't score touchdowns. for some reason, they don't throw to the man there. I saw a clip of him on Twitter today, and I thought it must have been from like 4 or 5 years ago. So if they're going to be scoring this much and Julio is just not the weapon, to me, it's Ridley and it's Hurst are going to be those options to be able to pull in and get all those touchdowns. All right, jumping into round 11. This is honestly one of my favorite picks. I took a look earlier today, and I've got him on every one of my dynasty teams. Mr. Boston Scott, running back 50 right now. Everybody's been talking about Miles Sanders, and I just want to talk really quickly about some of the usual narratives and what people tend to throw out when it comes to him. It's usually the fact that Doug Peterson utilizes a committee. Miles Sanders won't have the backfield all to himself. There's going to be some sort of split. That's what caps his upside. But who's capping his upside? Is it going to be one of these veteran free agents that are coming in? Is it going to be Lamar Miller? Nope. He's already with New England. Is it going to be the only person who's really available is Devonta Freeman? And I understand that between the next 3 weeks, there's a strong chance that Devonta Freeman signs with the Philadelphia Eagles. But I don't necessarily understand why the team would do that. The team is going to be it's got $27 million currently in salary cap space, but next year with all the contracts they have opening up, they need every single penny that they can. I can't see them taking on a contract when Freeman already had to walk away from Tampa Bay because he was asking too much money. Coach already came out and said that basically if it wasn't due to the contract demands that Freeman had, he'd be a Buccaneer already. So we already know what that price point is going to be. Then we look at the production from last year. You want to take a look at how well they actually run. You're looking at an extra 0.6 yards per production per carry from Boston Scott over Devonta Freeman. Maybe if you want to look at how good they are at evading other people. So Freeman had 184 carries, managed to get 41 evaded tackles. It's a 22% avoidance rate. You look at Scott, on the other hand, 61 carries, but he was able to get 26 evaded tackles. So over 43% of every one of Scott's runs, he's breaking tackles and making guys actively miss onto him. Now, the usual conversation is that the veteran is going to be the guy who's going to be able to provide better pass blocking. But if you take a look last year, 59.4 for Freeman in terms of efficiency, 95.4 in terms of efficiency for Scott. He's a better pass blocker. He's a better run blocker. He's a better running back. And he's already on the team for basically free. This is a guy who had an 84th percentile burst score, an 87th percentile spark score. And anybody who's not familiar with spark, it's basically just a fancy metric that seems how good of an athlete that you are. And then a 97th percentile on agility. This is on a team with the seventh most rushing attempts last year, 8th most rushing attempts the year before. And in my projections, I have them sitting basically right around the same. Now, the last thing that I had as kind of my concern about looking at Scott is that a lot of times when we make these projections, we're assuming guys are going to jump into roles that they've never had before. We're assuming that they're going to do something that they've never been able to accomplish in their actual lives. But if you look back in the last 4 weeks of the season, when they had to force Scott into the lineup, not only did he produce, he actually produced more than Miles Sanders last year. 81 points over those last 4 weeks instead of 80.8. Now, I know it's not a big difference, but we're not expecting these guys to produce at the same level. You're talking about a guy who's running back 50, who should hopefully be able to provide value into that borderline RB3, RB2 range. And if you are going 0 RB or you have a chance to be able to put him as a dart throw pick in the back of your bench, he's somebody who's going to be able to produce for you while still having standalone value. In my personal opinion, outside of Kareem Hunt, he is the number one handcuff in football.
Woo, it's a bold take, Cotton.
Well, to me, I mean, take a look back at the other guys. I mean, you look at Pollard, you look at Alexander Madison, you look at, I mean, maybe if you want to talk with some of these rookies, every single guy who you have here has a strong barrier to entry for them to actually be able to produce while they're starters on the field. Scott's able to produce even if Sanders is able to produce. And if Sanders goes down, he has the upside of probably RB11, RB12.
Yeah, so, I mean, my only thing is, the only thing they share in common, in my opinion, is they're in the same system where they love multi-backs. And especially with Sanders being injured right now, they're going to be spreading that ball out a lot. Although I do like the fact that he had 26 targets and 24 catches last year, missed 2 balls, so he's very consistent. I think he can be like a lesser version of like a Naheem Hines. Just someone very reliable that you can really check that ball down to. This is going to be a really, really spread out offense with everyone being knick-knack, tic-tac injured and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not in love with the Boston Scott pick at all. He probably won't be on any of my teams as far as redrafts go. But just as far as what he's shown a lot of promise. So I do agree with you on his capability, and that does make sense that his spark score is so high. Just as far as what I want and what I need on my teams, it doesn't seem like the value's there for me.
And to go off of that, he is actually, I want to say he is 2 picks away from Hines, 7 picks away. So you can only pick up Hines a couple picks after. To me, the tiebreaker is if there's an injury in the Indianapolis backfield, I don't see Hines' value really going up much. I feel like if there's an injury to Miles Sanders, or really to the rest of the team, because they've already shown that he can play in the slot and even throw him outside a couple for some snaps. I think he has just that higher upside to where if something bad happens around him, he's going to be able to rise to the occasion.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how I could not like a guy named Boston.
Good
but,
call, man.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him
man.
last year. I scooped him at the end of the year. There was some Miles Sanders trouble where he wasn't playing for a couple, and then Boston Scott filled in, and then Miles Sanders came back, and Boston Scott's like, nah, I'm still here. So I like that you had those last 4 weeks when they were actually playing with each other, and it just shows, like you're saying, he's one of those like handcuffs, but he's not really a handcuff because he produces even when the starter is in. So I don't think he's the second most valuable handcuff maybe, but I think he's top 5, top 6, basically right up there. And the fact that he can produce without any injuries ahead of him is a huge factor for me.
And hey, Conan, before you jump into your guy, just one final point. I'm just looking up. Jordan Howard was actually the running back 39 last year. So remember, we're talking full PPR. Mr. Brickhands, Jordan Howard himself, if he was still able to outproduce that running back 50 ADP, that's the thing that's really making me go into Scott, is that I don't see a world where he isn't going to outproduce that value, especially in full PPR.
Yep, fully agree there. And we'll go into another Philadelphia player, and that's going to be the round 12, Jalen Reagor, who's coming in around wide receiver 52. And he's being drafted right around 135th. And what I like is the opportunity. We've talked about it a couple times already. That whole team is banged up in terms of passing options. You got Alshon most likely to start on the pup to begin the season. You got Deshaun, who is healthy, but he's he's still coming. Yeah, he's still coming back from a major injury. And so basically, he might start the year as the third wide receiver on that team, but there's 2 guys that have extensive injury history, and then another unproven guy who's, I guess, showing some flashes, and that's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, but he's mostly unproven. And so this is where Jalen Reagor, that high draft capital wide receiver, comes in. I think he landed in a great situation in terms of immediate opportunity and the reps he's going to get, and a great quarterback situation. I think we can all agree Carson Wentz is a top, 10, 15 guy, top half of the league, but he's an excellent passer, maybe not a top 10 fantasy guy, but he's a great passer, and he's a vet now, and he likes Jalen a lot, judging by comparing him basically to Julio. He said he was explosive like Julio, and he came back, he backtracked a little bit, and he made sure people weren't thinking that Jalen already looks like Julio out on the field. No, he came back. He said he has that combination of speed and power, and that's really what Julio thrives off of. And Wentz said that he was watching some tape on Julio, and he saw a lot of similarities between what he saw on tape and what he's seen on the field so far with Jalen. And obviously those are some big shoes to fill, but even if you don't go anywhere near as good as Julio and you're a wide receiver at 35, that's still vastly outperforming him in that ADP, the ADP he has right now. And finally, I think when you get later rounds, for me, what I look at is I'm usually torn between 2 guys at my 10th, 11th, 12th round pick. And what I look at specifically there is their strength of schedule. And so based on win percentages of last year's teams, which obviously aren't the most indicative for strength of schedule, but it is usually what people work with. So the Eagles face a top 10 easiest schedule overall. And then they face the 10th easiest in terms of just opposing defenses versus just all wide receivers as a whole. And especially here, as I said, that was the deciding factor for me between picking Jalen Reagor as my best value guy and Rashad Perryman, who I also think landed in a great situation on a bad team who's going to have to throw the ball a lot from behind. But when I went and looked at their schedules, they actually faced the Jets. They faced the toughest schedule in the league for perimeter receivers, and that is what Perryman's going to be. Crowder has that slot role there, and he is supposed to be that downfield burner. But just seeing that, it's either you got two guys right around the same ADP. One has the toughest schedule for his position and specifically his position of his position. And then also you got another guy who is unproven, a rookie. You have no idea what's going on, but they just don't have that many options, and they spent the capital on him. So I just think he's a great value there. I'm not saying he's going to be Julio. I'm not even saying he's going to be a top 20 or 30 guy, but even if he can creep anywhere up there, that's outperforming that wide receiver 52 tag, and I like the pick there.
Yeah, no, I actually fully agree on this. To me, and I know this one might be crazy, but even in rookie drafts, I was taking Reagor over CeeDee Lamb and over Jerry Jeudy. He is my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty, wide receiver 1 in redraft for these rookies. And a lot of it has to do with the situation around him and then also just his versatility. There's few people who have the ability to play the X, the Y, and the Z and have the opportunity to be able to play the X, the Y, and the Z in their rookie year for their offense. Routinely, rookies don't have a chance to contribute early on. It takes them a while before they're able to really get the speed of the pro game. Reagor's not going to have that luxury. Like you said, with Alshon being out, that's the first 6 weeks minimum. Jaws definitely has the ability to move into that X wide receiver role, but he hasn't really shown anything, even in training camp. It seems to be like he's going to have the opportunity to be able to show, but he's not necessarily that first look and where the teams are really going to be pushing for. And with Deshaun Jackson, I mean, I was just looking up a stat here, but missed 17 games in the last 5 seasons. He missed only 9 games in the first 7 seasons before that. And recently it's been concussions, foot, rib, shin, hamstring, shoulder, ankle, thumb, Achilles, and his abdomen. So, I mean, and you're talking about a guy who's already in his mid-30s. So with the opportunity in the offense and his level of talent, I just don't see how this guy's not an absolute lights out. My opinion would be probably a mid to late wide receiver 3 this year. But like you said, coming in at wide receiver 52, that's a hell of a value.
Yeah, I also think Deshaun's 1 tweet away. So
Yeah, kind of to feed into what you're saying about Atlanta not being enough love to go around. It is a high volume passing offense, but I will say this: if everyone's healthy, I want Sanders. Behind him, I want Ertz. Behind him, I want Deshaun Jackson, which I can get 2 rounds later than Reagor. And then if Alshon was healthy, I'd want Alshon before both of those wide receivers. And then I start looking into, well, wait, who else got passes on their team? Dallas Goedert had like 90 targets last year. He didn't go anywhere, little knick-knack injuries with his thumb and, got knocked out and everything like that. He's still on the team, and Carson Wentz loves him. So, when the time comes, he's going to be 5th on the pecking order, in my opinion. And I just don't think he's worth it in a redraft league. Unless everyone gets injured again, then he will be definitely worth it. But until then, I'm staying far away from him. But if he's in a dynasty league, I recommend picking him up.
Yeah, and just going along with what you said right now, Philadelphia had the 3rd least amount of plays run out of 11 personnel. So 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, and the most in the league with 2 tight end sets. So it definitely is whoever that X receiver, if it's Jaws, if it's Jalen Reagor, or if it's Alshon when he's healthy, there's going to be some movement when it comes to the targets there. All right, well, that about wraps it up, boys. Thank you again to everybody who joined us for episode number 2. Before we do get out of here, just wanted to quickly shout out our listener league. We are going to be running this bad boy the first week of September and are currently taking applications. So please like, comment, subscribe. The show can be found at C2C Fantasy on Twitter, at Coast to Coast _fantasy _football on Instagram, and at Coast to Coast Fantasy Football on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. Thank you guys again. Hope to see you back for the next episode, and we'll see you then.
Peace out.
Later.